Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is attorney Adrian Pandev here, and today we're going to talk about how do you prove that you're in a real bona fide marriage in 2025. So as background, the reason I'm shooting this video is because there are more and more reports that USCIS is applying more scrutiny to marriage-based green card cases. There's more vetting of the applicants. Most cases are being scheduled for interviews again. There's no more interview waivers, and there's more and more Stokes interviews where couples are separated. So my goal with this interview was to give a bit of background and clarity and explanation, because I know this causes so much anxiety for so many of you out there who are applying for marriage-based green cards. So before we go any further and I talk about all these different types of evidence you can submit, what you should keep in mind is what the agency is looking for and what you're trying to prove here, right? So first and foremost, the standard is preponderance of the evidence, which is a fancy way of saying it is more likely than not that this marriage is real than not real. So the goal isn't for you to submit every single piece of evidence that I'm about to go over. Frankly, it's highly unrealistic because not everyone has every piece of evidence. It's just an impossibility. The goal is for you to demonstrate that it's more likely that you're in a real relationship rather than you having entered the relationship solely to obtain a green card, the immigration benefit, right? So as background further on that, very often clients ask me, okay, well, we've been dating for many years, we've spent holidays with each other's parents, we know each other's families, like we're in a real relationship. But one of the motivating factors to get married and file this case is to obtain the green card because it provides much more freedom and flexibility compared to various visas like H-1Bs, F-1s, etc. Well, that is fine. That is not just solely entering the relationship and filing the immigration application to become a permanent resident. You are in a valid marriage and you want to obtain permanent residence based on that so you can live in the US and enjoy all the benefits of becoming a permanent resident. The problem is, and what nobody should do, is where you're not in a real relationship, you're either paying someone or engaging in some kind of exchange solely to obtain permanent residence. Well, that's a huge problem. That's fraud, and nobody should be doing that, right? Now, that being said, what I want to do in this video is go through some of the main types of evidence, right, that you can use to prove your case, right? So first and foremost, probably the single strongest piece of evidence out there is children born to the couple, right? So if you have children together, well, that's probably the strongest evidence that it's a real relationship, and you should definitely be including birth certificates in your petition and applications to prove your marriage. Second type of evidence that you should be looking at is proof of cohabitation, proof that you are living together. So if you have a lease agreement that has both of your names on it, or if you're able to add someone to a lease, add each other to the lease agreement, that will help tremendously. If you own a house together, mortgage statements, etc., are great proof too. If you don't have any of these, say you live with parents, you can get a letter from the landlord or parent or wherever you're living confirming that both of you reside at this address. That is great proof of a valid marriage. Another type of evidence that's great is joint ownership of property. This can be a car, this can be a home, this can be a boat, this can be various things. Anything you own together jointly proves that you are treating assets as commingled, combined family assets. That proves your relationship. So any documents proving ownership of property together, you should be including. Similar to that, documents proving joint finances. So this can be bank statements, jointly filed tax returns. This can be retirement accounts like 401ks, IRA accounts, proving that you have listed each other as beneficiary on your retirement accounts. Similarly, brokerage accounts, right? If you're trading any stocks or if you have any mutual funds, listing each other as beneficiaries. Also, credit cards, you can add each other to credit cards, right? So any financial documents and accounts proving that you're mixing your finances will help your case. Another type of evidence that I often include are insurance documents. So if you have joint life insurance where you list each other as beneficiaries, health insurance if you're on the same policy, car insurance documents, any insurance documents on which you're both listed or beneficiary of one another can prove a valid marriage. One piece of evidence that's often overlooked, I find, are work-related forms. Often when you start a new job, they ask you to fill out who your emergency contact is, and many other forms listing that you're married and that you have a spouse, etc. Any forms like that in which you've listed your spouse as your emergency contact, you can include because it's proof of the marriage. Then another piece of evidence that I like are any trips or travel or any time spent together, or even if it's an event, right? You went to a show together and you can prove, you have photos and you have documents proving that you bought tickets. That can be great evidence because it shows that you're living a life together. Similar to that will be proof that you know each other's family and friends, and that your social circles are becoming one. So with that regard, I often submit letters from family, friends, anyone that knows the couple, just proving that this is a real relationship, that they know the couple. I find that this piece of evidence, the letters, are often overlooked, even though it's great evidence. I always tell everyone, if you can find 10 or so, 5 or so individuals, especially US citizens, to confirm that this is a real valid marriage, it's going to be hard to do that if the marriage isn't real, right? So don't overlook the letters. I think they can be tremendously helpful. What I tell all of my clients, I always ask for a copy of the individual's driver's license to include with the letter to prove that the individuals writing the letters themselves are real people, right? And you didn't just submit some kind of made up letter. Then another piece of evidence I often look at is photos of the couple together. I think just visual evidence is great because you have so many documents. I think it's so nice for the officer to also get some visual evidence, and you could include photos of major milestones, right? So or major holidays or anything, again, proving that this is a real relationship. I like photos where the couple is together with friends, family, traveling, graduations, basically big events with other friends and family that show that the couple is presenting themselves as a couple in public to friends and family. I think that's great evidence. I don't particularly like photos of just two people in a park because it seems like anyone could take those photos. They don't prove a lot. Now, in addition to these, if you had a wedding ceremony, I always get questions about the wedding ceremony. It is not absolutely critical to have had a big wedding, right? But if you did have one, well, then include photos and evidence of that because it's proof that, again, you celebrated with your family and friends and it was a big event. So definitely include proof of your wedding. And then finally, I tell everyone, think outside the box. So for example, say you don't have a joint lease or proof that you live together, but say you get a bunch of mail, right? You get official correspondence to the same address, or if you get joint correspondence to the same address, well, you can use that mail to show, hey, look, I get this important mail here. So do both of us. This is where we live. Instead of only getting letters from family and friends, maybe you can ask a neighbor. But the bottom line is, this isn't the universe of evidence. You also don't need all of this evidence. These are just the main pieces of evidence I often try to use. Most people don't have all of these. I try to use a combination of all of them to prove the relationship. Generally speaking, the less of these categories you have, the more you gotta provide from one of the other categories just to make up for it, right? So if you don't have any joint finances, you haven't lived together long, you don't have a lot of that evidence, then maybe you're going to need a lot more letters from family and friends, because your goal is to immediately demonstrate with the hard documentary evidence that this is a real marriage. Yes, you will most likely have an interview where you can also speak to the officer and explain that this is a real, valid, bona fide marriage, but your goal is for the evidence you're submitting to be strong enough where the officer already believes your story and believes your marriage before you even get to the questioning. Anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. I'll continue to try to post similar content. If you did like the video, please like it and please follow the channel for similar content. Thank you so much.